Sadly, I have a drinking problem. Whenever I put my glass down, for some reason, it hits the ground and all the drink comes out. Well, luckily it's playing the shed day and I've got some scrap that I think I know what I'm going to do. This is the table from an old bench drill. And I've got a piece of old exhaust pipe and some square hollow bar, but I don't really like the look of that, so I'm going to use some flat bar instead for the legs. So, it's off to the drawing board. I'm just making this up as I go along, but it's probably a good idea to get some idea of what I want. So, I know the height that I want. I know the width of the table there. So let's do a bit of a drawing so I get the proportions sort of correct. I want some rubber feet on the end of that flat bar, and I'm going to have 3 legs because, as we all know, 3 legs keep the table stable. So the drawing allows me to get the angles right on that flat bar. So it's just a matter of cutting out 3 bits of flat bar with an angle on each end. And in no time the 3 legs are cut out. 3 pieces of round bar will be welded onto the end of that flat bar, and the rubber feet will go on these. So just a bit of a chamfer on the sander and they'll be ready. This bench drill table's been sitting around in the back of the shed for a number of years and it's a bit grotty, so just a bit of a clean up is in order. Bit of compressed air dries it up nicely. I'm going to be using the TIG welder to stick all this steel together, and as we all know, the cleaner it is the better. And I've decided to take all of the mill scale off rather than just where it's being welded, because my plan is just to clear coat it all when it's finished. Okay, everything's cleaned up and this is how the legs are going to go. But because I'm using 3 legs, I've got to somehow decide how to get 3 even spaces. So this is what I'm going to do. Just using a bit of string, wrap it round the pipe, and then measure the string. Then divide that measurement by 3. Can't do it on my head, not that smart. And once I've got that, I'll put a mark on the string and I'll use that mark to measure out the 3 spots on the pipe. Easy. I know this will be hard to believe, but those 3 measurements worked out perfectly. So now just grab the square, draw some straight lines, and I'll use those as guides when I'm welding the legs on. As is pretty obvious to everyone, TIG welding steel together is so satisfying. But it takes a little bit of fiddling to get things right. So I'm just going to tack it on the end here. And once I've tacked it, then I'll make sure that everything's all nice and square. Yep, that'll do. TIG welding is such a lovely, clean process. No spatter, no mess, and you end up with a nice, clean weld at the end. Don't let anyone tell you that TIG welding's difficult. If I can do it, anyone can. There you go, that'll do for a backyard bumbler. As that tube is very thin, I'm making sure that I aim the torch at the steel on the leg. That way I won't blow holes through that thin tube. Time to weld on the round bar that will fit into the rubber feet. They're all done. That looks alright too. I'll give that a pass. Time for the tabletop. Now, the decision is, do I just leave that tabletop sitting there so that it can spin? Or do I weld it so that it's solid? Nah, I don't know. No, I think I'll weld it so it's solid. Otherwise you won't be able to pick it up. Now, this is some sort of cast mystery steel, so I'm not sure how it's going to weld, so the way I'm going to do it is just to heat it up a bit with the torch, just moving the torch backwards and forwards just on that, rather than on that thin exhaust pipe steel, until it starts to melt, and then I'll put a few dobs of weld into it. I'm only going to weld it in 3 small places. It doesn't need to be that strong. It's a bit tricky welding that big heavy top to that thin bit of pipe, but I've pretty much done it. And as I said, I'm just going to do 3 spots. Those 2 spots are okay, but I've blown through there, so I'll have to fill that up, but that's no problem. Alrighty then, looks like we're finished. The second surprise for the day is the table's actually level. Well, that's a bonus. I gave the top a bit of a wire wheel just to get rid of most of the rust and stuff, but now I'm just using the random orbital sander with 240 grit just to make it nice and smooth and sort of shiny. Okay, that's going to do me. Before I put on the clear coat, I'm just going to polish up those welds a little bit just to make them sort of shiny. And I'm going to leave the bluing marks from the welding. I reckon that just adds a little bit of extra bling and gives the table that nice industrial look. Bit of clear satin spray will help to stop it rusting. The table won't be sitting out in the open when it's not being used, so hopefully the rust will stay away for a little while at least. It doesn't take long to dry in the sun, and now the final bit is to put those little rubber feet on. And there's the end result. Happy with that. But the big question is, will it solve my drinking problem?